Well, hello peeps. Here is my PvP overview of the Retribution Paladin on the War Within beta. And we're gonna go over all the things, the Paladin side of things, the Hero Talent side of things, Retribution side of things, any kind of changes, notable changes, of course the tier sets and such. And of course finishing off with some gameplay. Now let's go into the Paladin side of things. Not many changes, right? We've lost some talent. We had like the range talent for Crusader Strike and like Rebuke here. It's been kind of pruned out. Touch of Light and like Iridescence was like a one slot choice node, and now it's like two. Generally speaking, for PvP, not many like notable changes. Like Vengeful Rat now deals increased damage when the target is below 35% HP, making it like an actual like execute instead of it just being like an automatic crit talent. And yeah, I think like there's not been like any kind of notable change as far as like this side of the talent tree is considered. So let's start off with Herald of the Sun. One thing that I did forget to mention is that Wake of Ashes, both of these kind of work with Wake of Ashes, which is kind of interesting. Like you have a similarity in them, but ultimately both feel very different. So very good job on like Blizzard designing this, where you're not gonna feel like you're playing, I feel like, a completely different spec, but you also don't feel like you're playing the same spec, right, in the same time. Like they kind of were able to kind of pinpoint that, I think, very nicely with the Paladin. So don't like casting Wake of Ashes, causes your next to Holy Power spending abilities to apply basically damage over time or healing over time. And this also cleaves for 10% of its damage to or healing next to the target. The other thing that's like notable of it is Eternal Flame. So you, instead of having World of Glory, you have a kind of, I think it's a little bit increased the healing amount. It also has a healing over time component, while also just being an increased heal when you cast it on yourself. So this would be also kind of the defensive part of this hero spec. Moving into one of the most damaging components of these hero talents is, of course, Blessing of Anshi. Your damaging and healing over time effects have a chance to increase the damage of your next Hammer Rat by 200% and make it usable on any target regardless of HP. Does not reset the cooldown of Hammer Rat like some other effects, and it's gonna do some nasty damage when you actually like proc this. And you're gonna proc this quite a lot when you're in your Wake of Ashes windows, or in your like, as we'll talk about, like the last talent when you're in your Avenging Rat. Another thing that's kind of notable, I guess, the movement speed talent. It is a little bit underwhelming compared to the Templar side of things. Illumine, just like a slow when you do your damage over time, and sorry, not damage over time, your Dawn Lights, right? But this is a damage over time, and increase the movement speed of allies when you have the Dawn Light on your allies, right? It's I just don't like it. I feel like it's a little bit like you either have to cast a heal on yourself to proc it, right, or you just have to have it like during Avenging Rat. Like I feel like it's not something that we get to use a specific mobility when we want to. It's just something that is gonna happen. We're gonna be more mobile on our burst and stuff, so definitely good, right, in that regard. And moving on into like the last talent, Sun's Avatar. So during Avenging Rat, you become linked to your Dawn Lights. You're gonna do like a laser in between of you, right? You're gonna do some extra damage in that laser. The main thing is that when you activate it, you apply 4 Dawn Lights on nearby enemies and increases the duration of those Dawn Lights, right? Or nearby allies as well. So this is why I say, like, when you do your Avenging Rat, you're gonna be able to kind of move around very good, but overall kind of underwhelming as far as movement speed. Will of the Dawn, I just don't like. I think this talent is just bad. Movement speed increased by 5% while above 80% HP. Like 5% really. Maybe this can be tuned higher, but I feel like still the 80% HP thing is for PvP as a melee, I just don't like it. Should be maybe like 75% or like 60%, and then when you're brought below 35% HP, you get like a burst of movement speed. I just feel like this is in the game today, right, where there's so many range slows and range like instant range slows into some range roots. This not having a freedom component to it is just in PvP is not gonna be good, right? In PvE you might like get hit by some mechanic and then like it helps you dodge the next mechanic. So I can like see how in PvE this is like still nice, but in PvP definitely not good. But yeah, as you can see, like you basically are a Sun God or Herald of the Sun, or however you want to call it. You're just gonna be blasting people with light left and right. Definitely why I like it. I also feel like it's with the Eternal Flame a little bit more supportive, and with this talent a little bit more supportive. So definitely something that feels fantastically, or how you say, fantasy-wise, a lot more like the Retribution Paladin kind of fantasy compared to Templar. Not gonna, like, I'm not knocking Templar, don't get it, this is just kind of a taste preference, right? If you like Templar more, all the power to you, right? It's just the kind of a taste preference. Definitely Templar is the PvP option that we're gonna be using, so if you like Templar more, you're in an already good position, how would I say. Ultimately, what's gonna hold back Herald the Sun is definitely its damage over time kind of focus component. I'm pretty sure this can also be dispelled, and its lackluster, let's say, movement speed. Now we can get into Templar. Definitely, I think the PvPer's choice. I think it's a lot simpler also how it works. It doesn't have like some kind of, I guess you can kind of think less, you could say, right? And it just does a lot of freaking damage. The main component of it is Hammer of Light. So when you do your Wake of Ashes, you get to cast a Hammer of Light. This is on top of your Wake of Ashes button, right? So you don't have like an extra button for this. Which is of course great, you know, not to have like an extra button that you don't need, but it just does a lot of freaking damage. It uses up 5 holy power, so you need to be fully stacked of holy power, and it's just a really huge big hit, basically like a double amount of Templar's Verdict, right? Also called, the other part is it calls down Imperial Hammers. These deal just a lot of damage. These are also AoE, so like they will fall down on targets beside you, right? Not just your main target, and these actually do quite a lot of damage. We also have talents like Hammerfall. Well, you know, when you do Temporal's Verdict, you're just gonna be doing more Imperial Hammers, and some other talents that of course increased Imperial Hammers. Defensively, you have Sacrosanct Crusade. When you cast Wake of Ashes, you get Shield of Vengeance at 10% of effectiveness. I feel like the 10% is just too low. Probably should be something more like 20. I feel like talent is good, just undertuned right now. Sorry peeps, before I let you continue on with the video, I do have to inform you that only 4.3% of you subscribed, so if you have been enjoying the content, please consider smashing that subscribe button. But we can't really like judge Blizzard for like tunings right now. Like we need to give our feedback and say like, yeah, 10% too low, 20% maybe something like that's gonna be useful. Just counting how much globals do damage, this is gonna be like, if it's 20%, it's gonna be a 500k shield. It's actually like a bigger global from like, let's say, like any class. So I feel like that at that point it's like a good amount of defensiveness. At 10%, it's just gonna absorb like a judgment from a paladin or something, right? It's just not gonna absorb a lot of damage. Moving into the speed component of Templar, this is, I say, the PvPer's choice. Divine Seed lasts at 2 seconds longer, so if you take all the Divine Seed talents, it can last up to basically 8 seconds and increases your movement speed by an additional 30% for the first 3 seconds. So Freedom plus Divine Steed, you're gonna be just, yeah, zooming around like Sonic, man, basically. You're just gonna be like super speed. I feel like it's very nice, very good. Sure, Paladin still doesn't have like, how would I say, like Steed is just generally not the most fan favorite ability. You don't have like, it's very like obvious when a paladin is doing it and whatnot, but I still feel like it's gonna be very good nonetheless, especially when you combine with the movement speed from Hand of Freedom. You're just gonna be able to actually like connect instantly to your targets, I feel like. So I think very nice in that regard. The other part is also, I think, better than anything Herald the Sun has, even though I'm definitely not the PvPer's choice. Bonds of Fellowship, you receive 20% damage less from Blessing of Sacrifice, and each time the target takes damage, you gain 4% movement speed up to a maximum of 40%. Definitely something we might run if Blessing of Sacrifice just becomes something really key to the component of Paladin, and I feel like at that point this could be good, but Unrelenting Charger is just baseline good. It's not a niche thing, it's gonna be good, I feel like, always. Moving on into Light's Deliverance. Basically, as you do your Imperial Hammers, as they fall down from the sky, you gain stacks up to 60 stacks. Once you have 60 stacks and your Wake of Ashes and Hammer of Light are on cooldown, you're gonna consume those stacks to get a free Hammer of Light. So basically, you can stack this up, do then a Wake of Ashes into 2 Hammer of Lights and do some nasty burst damage. This is why I don't like it as well, because I feel like something that's very much likely to get nerfed. First of all, the second part is gonna be definitely the stacking component. 60 stacks is a lot of hammers. Like, sure, I have been doing this mainly in kind of single target part of like the training area, but I just feel like it just stacks for way too long, even if you're counting like 100% uptime. So yeah, I don't like it, but definitely good. Like, if you can get this to combine with all your like other cooldowns and get it like double Hammer of Lights, you're just gonna be doing some nasty burst damage. Like, that's how they say, inarguable in a sense, right? Like it's definitely good when you get to it. I just feel like maybe nerfing it to like 75% effectiveness, but then you have less stacks, like 45 stacks, right? To get, I feel like that would be just make it a lot, just feel a lot better. Like right now, it just doesn't feel like something you get to access a lot of the time. Just feels like, but yeah, and that would be my little breakdown between these two. Herald of the Sun, definitely more for PvE, damage over time focused, and kind of more healing focused, of course, since it's shared with Holy. Templar, definitely PvPer's choice, but I feel like I wish this was a little bit changed, maybe, just so it just feels like it's too much downtime. Like I don't like the big downtime in my spec. Like this feels like every Wake of Ashes feels very good to use. Every time you get your Avenging Rat also feels good to use, right? This feels like it has this big downtime component or a big stacking component that I just personally dislike. So on the Paladin side of things, there is a few changes we have to talk about. Nothing really too huge. I guess first I want to start off with the defensive option. We do have like either 20% damage reduction to your Divine Protection or Shield of Vengeance here. Used to be like a singular talent, right? Shield of Vengeance, 1 minute cooldown like baseline now. Yeah, I feel like it's a nice little choice. This is probably something you're gonna more run in BGs, right? And Aegis of Protection is something that's probably a little bit more for arenas, simply because of its kind of consistency through dampening that Shield of Vengeance doesn't have. Like Shield of Vengeance is gonna become Shield of Paper at the single, you know, at some point, and Aegis of Protection is actually gonna be giving you a constant value, even though it's just a 30% damage wall. 1 minute cooldown is very good, and usable while stunned is very, very good. Another talent change comes here. Judge and Jury and Executioner. Divine Storm has a 40% chance to cause your next final verdict to hit additional 3 targets. We're not gonna use this in PvP probably, but yeah, we don't have like the crit modifier for our judgments anymore. The biggest changes are in this section here. So Truth's Wake is now Wake of Ashes, right? Seething Flames is like the first thing, right, that you can get, not one of the capstones, and we have 2 new capstones, right? Burn to Ash. When Truth's Wake critically strikes, its duration is increased by 2 seconds, so like damage over time component of Wake of Ashes, and your other damage over time effects deal 30% increased damage to targets affected by Truth's Wake. So basically a 30% damage modifier to your damage over time things, so something that is definitely more for the Templar side of things, and Templar Herald of the Sun kind of builds, right? For damage over time builds, this also probably works as well with Dawnlight's Radiant Glory. This replaces your either Crusade or Avenging Might, Avenging Rat. It just depends on what you kind of want. I feel like in PvP it's a little bit lackluster, just because Crusade has been meta for so long. So unless they go ahead and nerf Crusade, I just feel like we can't really run this. It just doesn't feel as good with Crusade, as you just don't get enough time to stack it up, right? You don't get enough time to get a really good value from Crusade. So unless they do some kind of changes to Crusade in PvP, I feel like we can't really run this, although it's very good, especially with Herald of the Sun, because every time you do your Wake of Ashes, you also get like 4 Dawnlights onto everybody, right? You also get your 2 Dawnlights on your abilities, so something definitely that's more meant to run with the Herald of the Sun, I think, builds. And yeah, until they kind of maybe change Crusade in PvP, I think it's not gonna be worth it, simply because you just don't get to stack it up, right? You're not gonna get a very good value. Maybe though, like for BGs though, like for BGs and with Herald of the Sun, this is probably gonna be feeling very good. You're gonna be constantly just cleaving Dawnlights and doing a lot of damage over time, I think. So maybe it has still a use in PvP, but yeah. So those were all kind of the changes for the Paladin side of things. Our Master has gotten changed as well, so it's not just holy damage done, it also has Judgment, gives Judgment kind of a proc thing. Pretty nice. I think there's also some other talents that give us a chance to kind of have a bigger interaction with High Lord's Judgment, right? So I think Hammer's Rats can also proc it, so pretty nice. I'm not sure, like, on the number side of things, like, is this now nerfed compared to how it was before or something like that, right? Not sure about those, but just feels, I think, as a good little flavor change, maybe. And finally, the tier sets before we get into the gameplay. I just feel like they're very nice in how they kind of play with the hero talents, comparatively to like other ones that are just, I feel like, you know, very good bonus. They have a good effect, but it's just not something that interacts with your hero talent tree as much. While this is like specifically almost feels made for the hero talents. It's also like a benefit to the hero talents and designers of Paladin, right? That they created the hero talents that both kind of work with Wake of Ashes, right? Even though they ultimately feel very differently when you play it. Now moving into some gameplay stuff, I'm gonna show off Herald of the Sun first because it's a little bit bugged, so I can't really like do proper rotation with it if I'm gonna also show it off. These talents are just something I created so I could like play both of the like Templar and Herald of the Sun to just test them out, so it's like not something final in any shape or form. And of course we are on PTR, so I am lagging a little bit. So the main thing I want to just show you off right away is how this ends up looking when you pop your Avenging Might. Right, you're just gonna get these little lines, right, of lasers. I think they can be stacked onto the same target, so like gonna be a little bit of a skill component, like moving around, right, getting to focus them down onto one target, and then yeah, just blast your damage as usual. I feel like the Herald of the Sun does not maybe change your gameplay too much from what it is right now, but I feel like it is a nice little enhancement. Get little procs here, pop one on myself, right? Get a little bit faster. They heal quite a bit, right? Like the Dawn Lights actually can heal you quite a bit, so I feel like this is definitely a more supportive Paladin if you in PvP than compared to Templar, which is gonna be a little bit more, I guess, balls to the walls, let's say it, right? Now moving into Templar, I feel like Templar can be shown off just a little bit more simply, right? So pop your like Wake of Ashes, right? You're gonna get the new ability. Just use kind of like you're doing some kind of rotation, burst rotation, and you can just, yeah, you do a big smack followed by hammers falling down from the sky. The hammers don't really have a good animation, like you can kind of see them when I do Templar's verdicts, but yeah, maybe it's just this dummy. It's like hiding the animation, but yeah, they are kind of a cool little thing. They're just gonna do a bunch of damage. They also cleave, right, when you do your Hammer of Light, so it's a very cool thing, I think, to me. Pop. Again, right, you get your Shield of Vengeance as well when you do Wake of Ashes. Definitely feels like you don't have as much of an interaction with your like main cooldown compared to Herald of the Sun, which has like a straight up proc when you get Avenging Rat and when you do Crusade. This is why I also said like the stacking portion of Templar just does not feel as good to me as like Herald of the Sun, which just feels like you have, right, you have your things a little bit more often, right? I just feel like it kind of offset as well from your Crusade. You're gonna get it into like your 1.5 minute mark or something like that. You're gonna get 60 stacks or something, right? It just kind of also offsets itself from and now I'm not sure if I can actually use Wake of Ashes before the first Hammer of Light, or do I have to do Hammer of Light into... Yeah, okay, can you use Wake of Ashes, Hammer of Light... Ooh, I guess it gets eaten up. That's interesting. So maybe you have to basically try and get the 60 stacks while Wake of Ashes is on cooldown if you want to stack it up. Or it's just something that Blizzard needs to kind of work on. This is the beta, so things are not working as intended. Like this talent here as well is like completely like not proccing at all, right? Like every time I shoot Judgment I should get like a stacking thing to increase the damage of my Empyrean Hammers. Maybe it's working, just not showing up, right? It's just maybe not showing up. In any case, both of these hero talents feel very fun to play. They both feel like they enhance the current playstyle, so they're not really like a huge difference to what it was before. Again, not a huge fan of like the way this light deliverance thing stacks on Templar, but I think something that Blizzard can kind of adjust how it works, right, or how the stacks work. Maybe you just have to always do Wake of Ashes into 2 hammers, or yeah. And that's about it, peeps, for the Retribution Paladin PvP overview. Definitely seems like Paladin is going to be very good. Increases to overall defensive, increases to mobility, good hero talents that feel very nice thematically and both gameplay wise. So yeah, not like huge changes like, oh my god, Paladin is now broken PvP, right? It's like the best time to play Paladin or something like that, but definitely feels very good. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all those things YouTubers want you to do, and have a nice day.